Perfect. Okay, so I'm just posting something in the chat, which is like a training crib sheet with the links and things that we're going to be using today. I will share them as well. There's a lot of me sharing my screen in order for this to work. What I would say is I'll keep an eye on the chat throughout. So if at any point anybody gets lost or isn't sure what's going on, please do feel free to post it in the chat and we'll just slow down and show things again. It's very much dependent on how you work personally. So if you or the idea behind the training now is that we all sort of build this together. But if you're sitting there going, that is going to be beyond me, I'd much rather just sit and watch. That's not a problem either. I know it's being recorded, so you can always follow the steps afterwards. But if in the chat, if you just let me know if you are trying to follow through, and if I lose you at any point, please let me know. So a bit of background, I guess. The purpose of this training, as has been explained, is to follow up on a presentation that I did for EmpowerED I think it was last month, on automated feedback generation using Power Automate. So this approach started a few years ago when I was getting increasingly frustrated about the fact that I was writing feedback for students that they weren't reading, that it was taking me forever to write the feedback, and that I felt there must be a more efficient way to do it. I was constantly copying and pasting feedback or trying to think of another nice way to say, no, that's not great work. And it was so emotionally and mentally draining for me that I thought there had to be a better way, which is where this linking Microsoft Forms with Power Automate comes in. So if I just share my screen. Okay, so the first thing that I am going to ask people to do is on the training link, training crib sheet, the first link is the one that you're going to want. So I'll post it in the chat as well. Apologies for the fact that you're going to see a lot of my random screen going on and yourself possibly. If I just go to the chat, there we go. So I've posted it in the chat for you. If you click on that link for me, that's going to start the process off by taking you to a template Microsoft form. And what I'd like you to do is click duplicate it. So we're going to be working off some templates that I've generated today or for this particular session, and what duplicating it will do is it will add it to your Microsoft Forms. Now it might be at that point that you have to log in if you're not already logged into Microsoft. I'm presuming most people will be because you're on Teams right now, but if you do have to do any authentication, you might just have to go through that just to make sure that you have access to this template. So if people are having a go, do you want to give me either a thumbs up or a comment in the chat just to let me know if that's worked? Fantastic. Okay, so this is the template that we're going to be working off first. It's our first template. And you'll notice that I've put in email address here for the first point. We then have marker's name, student name, and then a single answer multiple choice. So this is a very simple template of the sort of or types of questions that you might want to have in your Microsoft form to collect your feedback. Email address is only necessary for us right now because, in fact, well, just to make things a little bit simpler in terms of the email access down the line. And because I was sharing a duplicate version. You don't always need email address. If you're the only person that's going to be using the feedback, if you're the only person using the form, you don't necessarily need it. And there are ways around it that I'll show you later. But for now, to begin with, easier to start off with email address just for the purpose of our demonstration. Marker name would be if you have multiple markers. You could do this as a multiple choice if you know who the markers are, or you can just write down your name. Student name, student number, that's something that's needed in order to more easily identify what paper it is that you're referring to. This needs to be a unique number or a unique data entry, especially if you want to do any grade calculation with Excel down the line. But for now, we can just leave it as student name. And then we have our most simple version, which is a single answer, multiple choice. So this is where, if I was to preview and complete this form, I could only click on one of those options. We'll look at multiple answers later, but we're just starting off with the most simple. Okay, so now we have this saved. What we're going to do is you're going to click on the 9 little circles in the top corner, and you're going to want to click on Power Automate, which is this little arrow one. It might not be there for you. It's there for me because I use it all the time. If it's not, then you're going to want to click on More Apps, which will take you to your whole Microsoft 365 access, and then you should be able to find it within the apps that are in here. You can search over here. So if I type in Power Automate, it will find Power Automate there. So can everyone just let me know if you have managed to get yourself onto, just trying to get my chat on my phone to work so I can see it too. See if you can get access to Power Automate in the chat. Fantastic. Okay. Once you're here, you're going to want to click on My Flows. And this is where all of the flows that you create will be. So as you can see, I use them for basically every aspect of my life. But this is very much the homepage where you'll find all your flows. And you're going to want to click Create, New Flow. And from here, the one you want is an automated cloud flow. So if you are following along, just to make it clear what I've done there, I've gone to Power Automate, My Flows, or you can just click on the Create button here as well, New Flow, and you want an automated cloud flow. Everybody there? You're going to get so fed up of me saying, everybody there. Okay. Once we are here, fantastic. I'm glad to see the thumbs up. So once you are here, you can either come up with a name or it'll generate it for you. I'm just going to put demonstration and then I'm going to put the date just because I do a lot of these and I've got a lot of random demonstration ones. And the one you're going to want is, it should be the first one that turns up, but if it doesn't, you can just type in the box when a new response is submitted. So it should be the first option. If I zoom in a little bit so you can see more clearly, this one here. You click on that and then you're going to click Create. Now, this is going to take you to the new version of Designer. And when I've done this training previously, I'll repeat the message that I always give, which is we hate the new version. We're going to go away from it. So in the top corner, it says New Designer. And you can just click on the little toggle button and then click Switch without saving. And that is going to take you to the old version. The only reason I suggest that, the new version's fine and you can learn to work with it. I learned first using the old version, so I'm stuck in my ways a little. I also find it less glitchy with this approach. On the newer version, there are ways around some of the glitches, but it just seems to be a bit more problematic, whereas this keeps it as simple as possible. Once you're in here, I clicked switch without saving. So click without saving. But predominantly because we haven't done anything yet. And if you click with saving, it takes forever. Okay, so once you're in here, you're going to want to find your form. So the form is called training template. I know that. So I'm going to type it in, just find it, because I have a lot of Microsoft forms. If you don't have lots of Microsoft forms, you'll just be able to find it. So I've got 2 of them because I duplicated it. So I'm going to go for this one. Training template number 1, copy is mine. Once you've selected that, you're going to click New Step. And then you're going to type Get Response Details. So it's get response details, and the first one that comes up at the bottom there with Microsoft Forms next to it is get response details, and you click on that. What this is doing is the first one is saying, okay, if I can submit a Microsoft form, as soon as I click submit, then this Power Automate wakes up. Get response details is collecting the data from the Microsoft form. So again, for the form ID, I need to identify the form that I'm working with. So training template number 1, copy. And then the next box underneath it for response ID, it's going to make a recommendation for me, which is this response ID in dynamic content. So dynamic content is when it pulls the data from the Microsoft form. So we just want the response ID, and that means we're all linked. Everybody okay? If you could let me know in the chat if everything's okay.
I think Julie couldn't find a form earlier.
Okay. So just make sure that you did duplicate it. So if you go back to that form, make sure as well, sorry, that it's duplicating it to your account, your university account that will have this Power Automate. If you also have an Outlook account, it can sometimes link to that, and you don't tend to have Power Automate with Outlook, like a personal account. It has to be that kind of work account.
Thanks, Rebecca. I have found it now, but I'm afraid I missed the next step while I was looking for it. So could you maybe just recap that little bit for me?
Absolutely can. Not
Sorry.
a problem. Not a problem at all. So all that we did, once we had identified our form, we clicked on what was the next step button. I'll do it again. So if you click next step, you type in get response details. And then you can click on the first one that comes up. You find your form again, so hopefully you'll be able to find it again for yourself. So in this case, I'll delete this again in a second. So training template, copy, and then in response ID, when you click on the box, dynamic content should pop up. If you're on half screen, if I just show you, because if you're sharing my screen, it can be a bit difficult. It'll pop up underneath like this, and you want response ID. So you just click response ID. Everybody still with me? Julie, has that helped you?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm there.
Fantastic. So let's just delete that so we're there all together. Okay, so what we've done now is we've got our data from it, but the data needs somewhere to go. So this is our most simple version. All we're going to do is next step. We're going to type in email. I'm going to click on Office 365 because that's where my email stuff is. Well, sorry, we type in send an email. That's better. There you are. And you want version 2. So it should be send an email v2. Click on that. Now, this is what I mean about the email addresses. So obviously we had a Microsoft form question that asked for an email address. And if I click in this top box, I could type my email address, and that means it would automatically send to me. Alternatively, underneath, if I get rid of that bit, can you see it? You should be able to see it says dynamic content in like a blue hyperlink. When you click on add dynamic content, 2 things will pop up. So one, it's worked out that we're looking at email addresses here, and that one of my questions was email address. So I could click on that and it would just pull the data from the Microsoft form. Alternatively, if I click on responder's email, that means whoever it was that submitted the form, provided you've set the form up so that it's collecting that data, which as a default, most universities will do. If you click responder's email, it will pull that data. So for example, if my colleague was to use a form that I'd set up, because they've logged in via their Aston university access, their email would be pulled into the system. So it's up to you which one you want to go for. You can have it just send directly to you by typing in your email address. You can click this one email address if you want it to pull from the Microsoft form, or responder's email address, which is the one I'm going to go for. Does that make sense for everybody? Lost the chat. Oh, yeah, perfect. Okay. Subjects, you've got to have some sort of subject. So I'm just going to click demonstration. And then in your email body, this is where you put your template. So this bit can be as complicated or as simple as you want. Today, for illustrative purposes, we're going to keep it dead simple. So what I'm going to ask you to type is dear, and then go on to the next line for me. Thank you for submitting your feedback. Sorry, you're submitting your assessment, not feedback. Thank you for submitting your assessment. Can't spell. Your feedback is, and then a colon. Okay. Now, this is obviously, you could make it as complicated. You can use bold, you can format it however you want. You can, the more inputs you have, the more complicated it will be. But the crucial part is just what we do within the dynamic flow section over here now. So next to dear, we're going to click, it's point number 3, student name, click the student's name. Your feedback is, we're just going to click single answer, multiple choice, which is point number 4 there. And then from, I'm going to put the marker's name. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to work on the basis that unless anybody says, please stop, like Julie did so beautifully a second ago for me, that we're good. So what you're then going to do is click save at the bottom of the screen. There's also a little save at the top of the screen if you can't find it at the bottom. Once that's saved, we have our flow set up. Now, the easiest thing to do is test it. So if we click test, which is our little, like, I was going to say Bunsen burner. It's not a Bunsen burner. The little thing with a liquid in it. And you click manual, because it's the first time that we've actually run it, and click test. Now this is really useful because it lets me work out where, if at all, there's a problem. So I'm going to go back to my form. Now you can do this in preview mode, which is the easiest. So if you go back to your Microsoft form that you should still have open, it should have opened a new tab. If not, you need to get the Microsoft form back open and click either preview, or alternatively, you can do collect responses and you can copy this link up here. So if I was to just copy that into there, this is the survey link. So for email address, which doesn't really matter for me anymore, but I'm going to type in my email. Marker name, I'm typing in Rebekah. Student name, we're going to go for test. And then I'm going to select option number 1. Doesn't matter which option you pick, just remember which option you picked mentally, and click submit. Now, if I go back to my my flow, you'll see it's refreshed itself, and I've got little ticks next to everything, which means it's all worked. And I can tell from my phone that I've just had an email come through, which says that the demonstration has worked, and I have received an email with my responses. Does anybody need a moment? Any issues? Has that all worked for people? Anyone want me to show anything again?
I lost you after the get response details in the next step.
Okay, not a problem. That's fine.
I did not want to interrupt that. Yeah.
So that's not a problem. So just to walk us through it one more time. So after we've got our response details, what we now have to do is something with the information. So that could be populating an Excel document, it could be sending it to a OneNote folder, or it could be, as in this demonstration, sending an email. So all I did was, if I just delete this, just to demonstrate it again, I click next steps. I type in send an email. You want the one that's Office 365 Outlook. It's version 2. That's the one that you want. Click that. And in reality, it's just like sending an email now. So in the to box, I always go for dynamic content. So add dynamic content, which is the blue hyperlink. And then if you click responders email, that will mean it will pull the responders email through from the data. Alternatively, as I say, you could just type your email address for now if you want to definitely make sure it's going to work. For the subject, demonstration is what I've went for. And then it's about what you want your text to be. So for ease now, you can just click the buttons. So I'm going to go for in the order of student name being first. I want option, whichever option it is, next. I then want my marker name to be the final thing. Save. And what all that, so does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. And then all we do is test. So there is a little icon at the top for test. Now I've got the opportunity to automatically test it now because I've already put some data into my Microsoft form. But if you don't, that's really not a problem because you can just do it manually. And equally, if you find that something's gone wrong, that automatically is really useful because it just means you don't have to constantly do your form over and over again. So in manually, if I click test, I then have to go back to my Microsoft form. So this was the template that I originally shared with you all. You can just go to preview if you still have that open and then fill in the responses. So again, I'm filling my email address. As I say, the filling out your email address is just because I've shared it with everybody. If it's always my email address and I can always log on, I just do the response email for Microsoft Forms data, or I just have a multiple choice with my email address there rather than having to type it out every single time. Fill out your information, click option 1, click submit, and then in a second, you should automatically receive your email. Is there anything in that demonstration that anybody wants me to go back over? Or does that kind of make sense to people? Also received an email. Fantastic. Great. Okay, so people are starting to receive. Fantastic. Okay. So what I'm really want to show you now, though, is let's just leave that one alone. So I'm going to click on My Flows just to take me out. It's all saved. That's safe. If I go back to My Flows now, so if this is the first one you've created, you'll just have this one. I named mine, but yours might just say something like when a new response is submitted. I'd recommend naming it something. So on the 3 dots, you can, if you click edit, you can rename it just by clicking in this top. Up at the top, I could rename it now to 1 because it's, so there are different ways that you can rename. If I just go back to My Flows, what I really want to show you though is if you click on these, if you go to My Flows, where the one I've just created is there, and you click on the More Commands, those 3 dots, what you can do is you can save as. So if I click Save As and click Save, I have a new version of it now. Now it's turned off currently because they're like, why would you want to have exactly the same thing? You wouldn't. Again, I can just turn it on by clicking on those 3 dots. So now it's turned on. But crucially, I can just edit it. So to illustrate, if I go in and edit this one, and again, I'm going back into the old designer, I can just, if I have a different form, so say this was my assessment for module 1 that I study, but I give very similar feedback structure to a second module. All I need to do now is just pick a different form. So if I go into template, you can see I've got some other templates set up. I can just click on template number 2 and change it, and it will, and the whole thing, so long as the form's been set up in a similar way, will just work it out for you. So the key thing is you don't have to always rewrite it. Yes, question.
Just to confirm, do we need a separate form, or what if I only have one form and have put all the feedback, usually at give maybe 10 options there, and use that same master form for all the modules that I have feedback upon? Is that
Yeah,
an
so
option?
that's absolutely possible.
Okay.
What I find is that the more that I do this, the more complicated my forms get. So the more, because it really starts to annoy me having to type anything. So I quite like having, yes, maybe a general rubric section, and that rubric might apply to multiple assessments, but I tend to also have sometimes a box that's for specific areas that students have gone wrong. So common bits of legal knowledge in my area that they've got wrong in terms of this case, don't explain it this way, it needs to be explained this way. So they do tend to become module specific. So you can either just use the same flow, and once you set it up, you're good to go, or you can do this copying. And the idea of me showing you that is that now you've done it, the basic one today, you've got one that you can just copy and add more to. Now, what I do want to show you though, very quickly, so I'm just going to come off this, leave it alone. I'm going to delete this one so I don't get very confused in a moment, is what to do if you want a multiple choice that has multiple entries. So in the example that I've given you, you could only click on option 1 or option 2. And that works for some things, but there will be situations, and quite often, where there are multiple bits of feedback that you want to give. So by way of an example, I have a Microsoft form that has lots of bits that are just one answer that's really are indicative of the rubric. But then I've got another section that is are issues that the students had with communication. Now, it's quite common for students to have more than one issue with communication, and I don't want to have to set up a separate question for each one of them. So I want a multiple choice where I can click on multiple options. So if I just go back to the training sheet, and it's the second link, so I'll post it in the chat for you. Okay, so it should have, oh no, that's not appeared in the chat because I clicked the wrong button. Let's put it in this one. There we go. Okay, so again, same process. If you click on this link, what it'll do is it'll send you to another Microsoft form. This is form number 2. And again, you're going to click duplicate it. Okay. So to illustrate that last point that I just made, move that out of the way. If I go to Microsoft Power Automate again, I've got the one I just created, so I'm going to copy it. So save as, I'm going to call it demonstration 2. Click save. I'm going to click on the 3 dots again, and I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to edit it. So just to go back and show you what I did there, just so everyone's got it. So I'm on my flows. I had the version I wanted. I clicked save as. I gave it a new name. It appeared here. It was originally turned off. So I clicked on the 3 dots again, and I clicked turn on. And then I clicked the little pencil to edit it. Now, we hate the new designer. I'm sure other people don't, but I hate the new designer. So I take it off new designer onto the old designer. Are people with me enough at this point? Even if you're just watching at this point. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what that looks like in terms of just pulling, just as updating it with a new form. So I'm just going to go into when I get a new response, and I'm going to start to about my name, and I'm going to go to number 2 copy because that's the one I'm come up with. Again, let's change this one to number 2 copy. So all I've done is I've got my pre-existing flow. I'm just going to update it so that it's now connected to this different Microsoft form. And as I pull it through, So what you might see is sometimes it's, can you see it? It's got this code. That means it's not directly pulled it, so it's not worked perfectly, because it might be that there wasn't that question originally, or that it can't work out what we're dealing with. So I'm just going to delete that. And it was marker name, and just find it again to click marker name. So that's all I've done that's different. Now, I'm going to try and show this, and then I'll have to temporarily stop sharing my screen to then share my screen so as not to breach some terrifying data protection. But to test it, so again, notice now it's manually again, because I've not submitted anything to this Microsoft form, because I'm dealing with a completely new. That's a really good way to check that your copying over has worked, that I've moved it onto a different Microsoft form, because that helps you to know, oh, I've not filled it out before. So I'm clicking save and test. I've gone back to number 2, my template. I'm going to preview. Again, fill it out. Marker name, Rebekah. Student name is again going to be called test. And then I'm going to click option 1 and option 2 and click submit. Now, temporarily just stopping sharing. An email has just come through, and if you've been working through this yourself, hopefully you've also received an email through. And what you'll notice is a whole load of weird and wonderful extra punctuation in there. So if I go back to sharing my screen, there we go. So here we go. So for those of you that are just watching the demonstration, test was my student name, my name's there, but I clicked option 1 and option 2, and it's pulled through this extra punctuation. Now, that's because it doesn't know what to do with the data. Now, the first option is you can just leave it and then go in and change it manually. So I used to just copy that into Microsoft Word and then replace any square brackets and speech marks, and I just look for it to delete. But what I'm going to show you now very quickly is how you can add in an extra layer to the EmpowerAutomate in order to remove that punctuation automatically. So I'm going to go back to my Microsoft form. I'm sorry, my EmpowerAutomate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to editing it, and I'm going to add something in between get response details and send an email. So I'm going to add in, click on this little plus, which is insert next step, and I'm going to add an action. Now, I'll do this a few times if people are trying to follow through. Also, I'm going to state this right now. I am not a computer tech person. I am not educated in this at all. So if anyone in the room does understand things like HTML and coding, I apologize for the terrible pronunciation of what's going to happen. I only learned how to pronounce this the other day. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a JSON, which I've always just mentally done as a JSON. So what we're going to do is we're going to type join. And we're going to click on our option here, which is a data operation. You'll know it from it's always purple, and it always has the weird curly brackets and a little pencil, I think that is, in the middle of it. So within data operations, again, it's there for me, but I'm just going to type it, join. That's what we're looking for. So just to be clear, all I did was I clicked on insert new step, add action. I typed in the word join. I could have scrolled down and it would be right there, join, or you can just go through data operations, join. That's what we're looking for. When we're in join, we're going to click in the from box. Now, when we're in the from box, our dynamic content has popped up. What we're going to do is click in at the top, when it says dynamic content, next to it, it says expression. You click on expression. And that's going to bring up, kind of like in Excel, a formula bar. Now, what we're going to do is, if I just move my screen over a little bit, there you go. So just to be clear, all I did was I clicked in from, add dynamic content automatically pops up. If it doesn't, click on the little hyperlink. And then next to dynamic content, it says expression. Here, all I'm going to do is in the formula box, I'm going to type JSON, and I'm going to open my brackets. So JSON, open bracket, and automatically the close bracket will appear and you'll have a flashing line in between the brackets. What you're going to do is you're going to click back on dynamic content. So we were here in expression. We're going to click into the heading for dynamic content, scroll down and find the one that we want, which is our number 4, multiple answer, multiple choice, and click OK. So just to show everybody again, I click on from, go into add dynamic content, click on expression this time, type JSON, open bracket, click dynamic content, scroll down to the multiple choice answer that I want, so number 4, and click OK. And then in the join with box underneath, I'm just going to enter the space key. And that's going to, what that's doing is that's saying, okay, I get there's multiple points of data that are coming from this particular answer. And because I've definitely got an answer here with multiple bits, rather than having the punctuation that I've put in automatically, the square brackets and etc., it's going to go, okay, it wants me to separate them with a space. You could separate it with a full stop, with a hyphen, whatever the hell you want to separate it with, but I just go for a space. Then go back to your send an email, which is still here. And rather than pulling the data from Microsoft Form, which is what it's currently doing, so I'm going to delete that 4.multiple answer, and instead I'm going to click on my join output. And what that's going to do is now, if I test it, so I can automatically test it because I've used something previously, which makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to save and test. I'm going to temporarily stop saving so I can show you my email. Which is here. The email has come through automatically. See, it comes through super quick. And what if I close that and now reshare my screen? There we go. There it is. This is the email. Now you'll see no more weird punctuation. Yay! It's just been separated by a space. So you can do this as many times. And once, I promise you, once you've done it once, it's super quick to do it again and again and again. Because all we're doing is if we have multiple choice questions, it automatically pulls through. I'm really conscious of time because I think there's meant to be a 15 minutes or so for any questions. It's up to you. If you have got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. If not, I'm also happy to very quickly show how to code it so that it generates a mark for you if that's something that people are interested in. So I'm happy to answer questions or do that very quick final demonstration, whatever works best for the room. So if you let me know in the chat what you prefer. I haven't seen many questions being posted.
Yeah, I think people were busy following the steps through.
I understand completely. I tell you what, why don't I quickly show the final how you can link it with Excel.
Go ahead.
I'll do this as a demonstration rather than as a step-by-step kind of walking you through it, and hopefully the recording then means that it can be followed through. Equally, you can try and keep up with me if you want to. Okay, so if I will share, so what I'm going to sharing in the chat now, if you want to try and keep up with it, is an Excel document. So this Excel, if you click on the link, It's going to take you to Excel. What I want you to do is download it. So create a copy. So download a copy. You can create a copy online if it's linked properly. Mine's not going to be helpful. So if you just download a copy, and then you're going to want to go to your Excel on your OneDrive. So if you can get yourself to OneDrive, I've got my demo there. I'm going to add a file just so that it's uploaded. File to upload. And then it'll be in my downloads. There we go. Okay, so all I've done is uploaded created an Excel document for you as a template, just so that I didn't have to copy and paste all the coding over. And please don't judge me for the state of these files. Okay, so this is my Excel document. This is a general template that I use because it's got all the coding already in it, and it doesn't take too much to populate it and update it. If you want to create it for yourself, you pick the bits of information that you want to pull through. So I want to pull through the student's name. I want to pull through a answer, the answer to question 1 and the feedback I gave to question 2, for example. I then have some formulas in here, which once you've got it, just by way of explanation, it's just a basic index formula. I love Excel, so I realize I'm saying basic, and that might make people come up in hives. I just have it saved. So please don't think I'm some sort of crazy person that has this in my head. I just have the exact same formula, and I'll explain how it works briefly if I have any time at the end. What I'm going to do is, if I just edit, should we edit this one? No. So I'm going to go back to my first demonstration. So if you did save as and you're copying and following through, then go back to the first demonstration and click edit into the old designer, switch without saving. And what I want you to use is another Microsoft form. I should say I am well known within my team as being slightly obsessed with Microsoft Forms and forcing other people to be obsessed with Microsoft Form. So if you are going to follow along, please do feel free to. If you just want to watch, that's fine. But what we have here is a third version of a form. Again, a very basic, simple template that I'm duplicating. Okay, so I'm into my old. This is exactly the same process that we did last time of just updating the form that we are linking to. So previously we were linking to number 1. I now know that I'm linking to number 3. So I'm just going to change the names to update them to be number 3. Now, if I look at number 3, you'll see that I actually only I've got 2 single answer. So because they're single answer, I don't have to do the JSON thing, the JSON. I don't have to do any of that. I'm just linking it through to these particular individual points where these could be statements that are coded towards these particular grade boundaries. I've just kept it simple with numbers for now. So if I go to my email, you'll see again, hasn't been able to cope with one of them, so I'll delete that. It's only pulling one bit of feedback through, so I want feedback 4, and then, because I haven't put my name in there, that's why I can pull it through. So that's my email. My email's up to date, but what I want to do is link it to Excel. So I'm going to add in a step, add an action, and Excel is waiting for me there, but I'm going to type in add a row into a table. Now, Excel is there for me. Add a row into a table. I click on that. What we're now doing is linking to your OneDrive to find the Excel document. So if you did save as and save it to your OneDrive, awesome, you can follow through. If not, you can look at these steps later. So all I'm going to do is click on, so it's OneDrive for Business. It's finding your library, so OneDrive. finding my file, which is going to be buried somewhere terrifying in the multiple files that I have in this section. And it's called demo, isn't it? There you are. Demo 3. And then finding my table. So one thing to know, if you're setting this up yourself, you do have to set your data up as a table. So to do that, normally all you would do is highlight it, click insert and click table on Excel. But I've already put it as a table, and it is table number 1. So if I come back into here and I click table 1, what that's going to do is it's going to pull the potential places that my data could go. I should say Excel does do this for you. So Microsoft Forms does do this for you. It does create a table for you completely automatically. But there's another step that I'm not going to have time to cover with you today, where we can get the content of the Excel to automatically go into the Microsoft form. Sorry, the content of the Excel to automatically go into the email. And if you're going to do that, then you want to have your own setup, just because then it's easier for you to manipulate your data. So student name, click student name. I'm just clicking the corresponding bits of information. Single answer 1, so that was point 3. I'm leaving that box, the next box, empty, because that's where my calculation is going to be. Single answer 2, so that's number 4. And that's it. I'm going to click save. Now, I haven't tested this before, so manually test, or maybe I had tested it. And then what I'm going to do is, if I go back to here, collect response, sorry, ignore that preview, fill it out. Student name, again, we'll go for test. Okay, so I'm going to say that for the first criteria, or for the first question, my student got a 50. For the second one, I click the feedback comment. Again, it could be any kind of statement of feedback. They knocked out a part and got an 80. I click submit. Now, once again, I'll get an email through which says has populated it. But crucially, if I come over here, you'll see that it's pulled the data through, and that, hold on. Why is that not? Let's just check. Why has you, this is what happens when you demonstrate with something that you haven't demonstrated with previously. There's no difference there, is there? No. Sorry, I know why. It's because my formula is wrong. Apologies. If you are using the data, then you're going to want to move the formula to be D, not B. Sorry. So D and D. There you go. So there you can see, for the first bit of comment, it's coded it to 50. For the second comment, it coded it to 80. And the overall average between those two is 65. The coding has come from here. So if, for example, I changed it, so I can now code it so that it pulls through more student-facing text, and I'm happy to do a little video after this to add to the YouTube video, or just for the channel, if that would help, on how you can do the next step, which is pull this data so that that automatically goes into the email too. But that was a very quick demonstration and training of how this works, and hopefully that's helped at least a little bit.